Good morning, everybody. How are we doing? So welcome to our session, Make Windows Devices More Secure by Taking Them Out of Your Existing Infrastructure. My name is Chris Rhodes. I'm an MCT, a Microsoft Certified Trainer, and a Windows MVP. And I work for a company called IT Masterclasses.
And my name's Andrew Bettany. I'm also from the UK. I'm also working with Chris at IT Masterclasses. And we specialize in Windows deployment and really educating folk on how to embrace this new change, the cloud, devices. And we've put this deck together for you to really open your eyes, hopefully. Embrace this new world.
So let's have a quick straw poll. Where are we at here? Who's fully embracing the cloud right now in their organization? Hands up. One.
Wow. Okay.
Not so many. Okay, hands up who's completely resistant to the cloud. Okay, but everyone else therefore is sitting on the fence, and that's kind of what we want. We want the fence sitters here today, and hopefully we're going to try and persuade you that actually making that switch is actually a good idea.
Do you think they've got an open mind? Have you got an open mind? Yeah? Good. No, that's it. That's it.
Okay.
So, are there a few myths in the audience about why we can't go to the cloud? Anybody want to shout any of these out?
Come up to the mics. What's holding you back? Why not do this? Why not just move everything out to the cloud? Your desktops
Come on,
are
sir.
better
Thank
off there,
you.
surely.
We have
any myths there?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Tell us, please. Don't lose your laptop.
So for us, we have a lot of business line applications that are iSeries or mainframe based.
Mainframe based, wow.
Or,
Okay.
or iSeries, like AS400.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody else? What's holding you back? So Win32 apps, mainframe apps, what else?
Is there a management piece to this?
State regulations.
State
holding you back.
regulations.
Yeah.
Okay. So why have we got this prop here? What's this balloon about?
Well, we've got this balloon, and we've written a couple of myths on there, reasons why we can't go to the cloud. And we hear this so often, and not every business can go to the cloud. We know that, and this is not a one-size-fits-all. But what percentage would you say, Chris?
Well, I think at least 80% of people in this room should be able to make this switch that we're talking about. I hear the government and legislative requirements may hold you back on some of that or all of that, but I think the vast majority of people here should be able to make some or all of these switches that we're talking about today.
And we're not necessarily talking about 100% of your organization. And it's better sometimes. It is great if you do the whole thing and it's like you're fully committed, you're all behind it. But we've also seen a lot of smaller companies pilot it. So maybe deploy their IT team, make them completely mobile. Maybe their home workers make those completely mobile. And do it in phases or stages, and then evaluate, especially if you've not done this before, because it's not so painful initially. But the other thing is, this is not a new concept. This has been evolving over the last few years. So another myth that we sometimes see is the technology isn't ready. It's not all ironed out. The roadmap isn't there. Whereas that isn't really a valid excuse anymore. We're starting to see people who move to the cloud or move their devices to be managed by the cloud, which is what we're really looking at today, are starting to see those real benefits in the last 12 months for sure.
So does anyone here feel that? Do they think the technology is not yet mature enough for you to make that change in the cloud? Hands up who thinks that. Okay, so no one really thinks that. One or two. Okay, so let's move on. We're going to have a quick look now at the traditional IT environment, and I'm guessing that most of you here are going to relate to this. We have Active Directory. Everybody has Active Directory, right? It's the right thing to have. We've got your classic domain-joined PC here. It's joined to Active Directory from the day you deploy Windows onto that device. And let's think about why we do that. We do that for security. We do it to authenticate the user and the machine they're working from. Well, that sounds like a great idea, doesn't it? And of course, once we've authenticated, you're probably familiar with this concept, we get an access token. We can touch the resources that we need in our working day, our file servers, email servers. That's the usual traditional picture. Hands up who relates to that. Is this your network?
And did you get given that network, you know? Because that's another legacy thing is, oh, we always do it like this. This is how we inherited this from the predecessor. You know, we keep upgrading it from one year to the next to a new operating system, but we wouldn't dare stop having that infrastructure because that's what we've invested in. You know, we've got thousands and thousands of dollars invested in that infrastructure. We can't think of something different. Yeah? All those licenses, all those hardware, all the tin, it's just sat there and we maintain it, and that's our job. If we move to the cloud, do we have a job? You know, that's another myth that hopefully we're going to expose today.
So if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? If this works, and it has done, most of you here have probably had Active Directory for 5, 10, maybe even 20 years, and it works. That's great. Quick tech recap on that, though, and let's see why that may not work longer term. Kerberos, we've all heard of that? That's our main authentication protocol for users, for computers, talking back to Active Directory. That's great, that works. We use tokens for those servers that we're accessing through the day as well. Resources in this model, we're assuming, are primarily on-premises. The line of business applications, the email server, the SharePoint server, the things that the user needs to do their job are hosted on-premises. Again, this is the traditional IT model we're describing here that you can relate to. Devices are typically managed with group policy, maybe System Center.
And we manage them in a very heavy-handed way, don't we? It's like, we've got to have it, Active Directory, we've got to have group policy, we've got to manage that. You know, there's no room for error. We don't allow any room for error, okay? And why do we use, why is Kerberos not going to be good for the next 100 years? It's a very solid security platform now, but it just doesn't go to the cloud, does it? So if we ever want to use any cloud services, we're going to have a hybrid solution. We're going to have two identity solutions. Okay, so that's what we're going to think about. Can we move to the cloud now? Well, if we do, what do we do with Kerberos? Do we need to have two? Do we need to have that duplication?
So our proposition to you guys is simply this, that we believe that Windows devices can be more secure by not actually having them as part of that traditional IT infrastructure.
Say that again, Chris. What does that mean?
So Windows devices can be more secure, slight caveat with the can, but they can be more secure because it depends on how you do this and how you make the job well done by actually taking them out of that fixed environment. We don't necessarily mean physically, but we mean not part of that AD, fixed network diagram anymore. Having them more free, not just physically, maybe they're out in the field a lot more, but we mean in terms of how you manage them.
So one of the reasons, if you ever look at all these breaches, the security breaches, and this is not a security class, if you look at security breaches over the last 5 years, and they're getting more and more, aren't they? The number one reason why folk are getting hacked is because they're not patching, they're not keeping their systems up to date, and holes are creeping in to their infrastructure, either through the web or through social engineering or through not patching. By embracing the cloud, you hand that off to Microsoft. They do the patching, they have an SLA, they keep it secure for you, rather than us. We don't manage it at a minute level. They do. And they do it for so many million people, they're next on the line. Whereas we're trying to replicate that level of security, and I know some folk, we need to have an ironclad fist around our data. Yeah, we're not talking about data, we're talking about devices. The data will always be safe. It's always going to be encrypted, or it's on your servers, or it's in the cloud. It's going to be safe. What we're talking about is that day-to-day patching management. Where are the holes? That I'm not saying that you're going to leave those holes in there, but we're so busy, whereas what we can say is let the cloud do some of that.
Yeah, but let's be fair to you guys. We're not saying you're doing a bad job at that. And in fact, people like banks, companies like that, they're going to have specialist teams that's all they do, is ensure that the computers are patched, they do the remediation and the checking. But for the majority of people, they won't have that dedication of time and energy to do that. We do a best effort in most cases, if we're completely honest. Yeah. We're IT pros, we do the best we possibly can. But hey, that computer didn't get patched for a month because it's out in the field. Well, it's difficult. That's hundreds of miles away. I can't touch that.
And it's one of 100,000. It's one PC out of 100,000 in your estate. You can't have eyes on every single device. I know we should, but there's potential for error. Okay? We're the same.
Okay. So let's talk about how we can start this shift to cloud. And I think one of the main technologies we need to discuss pretty early on is Azure Active Directory. And the opportunity here for Windows devices is the ability to join Azure Active Directory. We know that Azure AD is a cloud identity store. We can store users, we can store groups in there. But what's not always talked about quite as much is the device angle on that. We think of users and groups, but what about the devices? So being able to connect a Windows 10 device natively to Azure AD and to be able to connect and join it. In fact, if you run setup on Windows 10, it asks you that up front. Do you want to join your Active Directory on premises, or do you want to join the cloud and join Azure Active Directory? So they've brought that front and center even during the setup phase. So it makes you think a little bit more about, oh, should I be making that switch? And we hope you do. So being able to join a computer to Azure AD has some benefits. First of all, who's using Office 365? Quick show of hands. Okay, at least 80% of people there. So immediately, there's a crossover, there's a connection, isn't there? Office 365 user identities are Azure AD users, right? So already we can start to think, well, let's start to integrate and not think about different identities. Azure AD is the back end to your Office 365 world. Those users are already connecting, they're already authenticating when they open their mailbox and their SharePoint and their OneDrive. So already, if we start to do this, we're actually making life simpler for the IT people and the users as well. They log onto their PC with their cloud identity, they can access their cloud resources a lot simpler. We get single sign-on, either through Edge browser or through applications themselves. So when I open up my apps, I want them to seamlessly connect, log me on with that cloud identity. I don't want to log into my Windows PC with one user account, log on to Outlook with another account. That's difficult for me to manage as an IT professional. And think of the poor user who has to now remember 2 usernames, 2 passwords. Not even going to go there on that one. OneDrive. Who's using OneDrive in their company for storing items nowadays? We've had some great talks this week on that and some really good features coming down the line. That's getting a lot faster adopted inside of companies now. Users want that any data, anywhere, any device experience. And this is key to unlocking that, having that single identity. So what about that AAD join then? Let's go back to the traditional model we saw before. We had a desktop computer joined to Active Directory. This time we're actually going to join or register a device with Azure Active Directory. So yeah, we need internet connectivity for that, but that's pretty much all we need, assuming that we already have an AAD tenant in the cloud. Our users can come along as themselves, not an administrator. A user can perform this. If they have an AAD user account, they can simply come along, use that account to connect and register/join that device. And I'm going to break that down in a second. Once they've done that, the resources we're thinking that they're going to be accessing seamlessly now are cloud-based applications. It could be Office 365, it could be other applications, either first-party Microsoft apps or other third-party ones, Salesforce, Box, DocuSign. All the resources get unlocked with that same identity. So let's have a quick look at what that might look like once we've actually connected. So here I've got an Azure AD tenant. I'm in the Azure portal, of course, so I've connected to portal.azure.com. On the left-hand side, I've already clicked down to Azure Active Directory. And then I've clicked on Devices. Now, this is a preview feature right now, so maybe you don't want to bet the bank on it just yet, but it's a preview feature. But it's going to come live very, very soon. And what I'm able to see in this particular view is a list of devices that have already connected in this way we've described. Some of them are phones, some of them are PCs. But they're already registered and known to Azure Active Directory. I also have some user accounts, but that's not what we're talking about here today. These are registered devices. AE knows these devices already. And I'm just going to click one of them here. Just going to pick one of these here. And mostly, there's not a lot you can configure here, but what I want to draw your attention to is the fact that you can disable this computer from here. So you've still got that management of being able to disable, like you might disable a computer account in Active Directory, for example. And we've also got a button here called Manage. Now that's grayed at the moment. Does anybody know why that is grayed out? Okay, because we haven't got Intune connected to this. We'll come and talk about that later on. But with Intune, we'd be able to deep dive onto that computer and drill down into much more detail about that device, what's running on it, what version of Windows, what applications are installed, and actually manage that from here as well. One advantage of seeing this information is you might also notice that I have a BitLocker recovery key there. Hands up who's using BitLocker for encryption on their devices. All right, a healthy number, good to see. One of the myths that we often hear is, if I move my stuff to the cloud, well, then that makes my job harder as an administrator because I have to sometimes reset computers, disable them, or in this case, maybe unlock that BitLocker if I have a hard drive failure or a motherboard failure on that device. So that is actually pushed up to here. So as an admin, I'm not really losing that control. In fact, it's probably easier to view that here than it is in Active Directory, if I'm brutally honest.
Yeah.
Now, I mentioned registered devices and joining, and a lot of people get confused on that, so I just wanted to break that down for a moment, because registered devices are not quite the same. It's a little bit confusing. So when I join my computer, when I say, hey, AAD, this is my computer, I'm connecting, registering devices is the language we use to describe a device which is usually a BYOD, a bring your own device computer. So it's somebody's personal computer, let's say, or a phone, and we're registering that so AAD is aware of it, just like we've seen. We would still expect users to locally authenticate to that device. So they're logging on with a local user account. It's a personal device, right? That's what we kind of expect. One of the benefits of doing this is that we can MDM manage that. It's optional, but we can use mobile device management to manage that device centrally, and we're going to pick up on that a little later. So it has that capability. And also, this extends across not just the Windows devices, that's what we're talking about today, but iOS, so your iPads, your Android phones, etc., can also benefit from that model as well. The right-hand column, it really is a superset of that. They've evolved the device registration into joining. So we use that same language that we use on premises. We're joining Azure Active Directory with our computer. This is designed for Windows 10 devices. This is a superset. So we're expecting that this is your company device. You've issued that Surface, that laptop, that tablet to the user, and they're now registering that up to your AAD tenant. So this is not so much bring your own device, but probably choose your own device or a company-issued device in the first place. The whole big benefit here is that the user is now signing into that device with an AAD credential. We're not using local accounts here now. And an extension of that is that you can also combine it with features like Windows Hello for Business. I actually authenticate to my device with the camera. So I show my face to unlock my computer. Now, you can do that in local authentication mode as well, but I'm actually doing that and hard linking that to my AAD username. So I literally turn my computer on, it sees my face, it knows it's me, and it's my AAD credential that's being checked. So we'll expand on that in a minute. We're also able to access the Windows Store for Business that the company may well have set up in order to help distribute applications. So I hope that clears up a few myths around the differences between those two. So coming back to our main premise then, why is this actually more secure? We've unpacked a lot of tech there, explains how it works. But why is it more secure? That's what this talk's about. Well, the cloud, unfortunately, doesn't run on Kerberos. I know that's an internet standard, but hey, we seem to just associate that with on-premises. Kerberos doesn't really work there. We use protocols like OAuth for authentication in that world. We're using HTTP to carry our authentication backwards and forwards, not Kerberos and those kinds of ports. It's all running over HTTPS these days. So we need to think about the modern world. We're touching applications. We're touching Office 365, etc., with our cloud identities. OAuth has to be used. Kerberos does not cut it, I'm afraid. So for some of you, you might be thinking, well, I can see your point, Chris, but that means some of my users may have the two identities then. They may have their on-premises username and an AAD username. Yeah, that's a nasty place to get to. We can get out of that in two ways. We can get out of it by federating, so we only have one username and password to remember, or we can get out of that by just abandoning the on-premises stuff, okay, which might be a little bit more scary. What we have to be wary of is we want to ideally make it as simple as possible for us, the IT professionals, who have to do the password resets and set up the users, and simple as possible for the users themselves when they're accessing the data. Having one set of credentials is the best solution, right? Also, it's worth mentioning that cloud identities can also be used inside of your organization. It's not just for outside applications. So hello for business. Anybody got devices deployed or thinking of deploying devices like Surface where you can use biometric methods, PIN numbers, facial recognition, fingerprint? This can tie in with that, as I've just described. You're tying this back from information stored on your local device. We're not storing your facial recognition data or your fingerprint in the cloud. No, that's stored on your TPM chip on your PC. That stays there the whole time. No cloud service touches that, except the public key that goes with your private key that's used in that process. So when you log on, your private key, which is held locally, is used to verify your information, and then it passes off back to AAD to say, yep, that person's successfully validated using their biometric method of login. So we're not really sending any passwords. We're not sending your face to the internet and storing it somewhere. It's all being held locally. So no passwords, we believe, makes things more secure.
Because that is a big concern with a lot of people. They think when we move to facial recognition that we're actually handing off our identity to someone, and we're not. We're verifying that it is us and then passing a token or a key. And that's a one-time use key. Yeah. The next day, you log on again. It verifies that that's you. The TPM issues the public key, and that's a one-time use. So, it's your job to reassure your users that there's no identity theft going to be taking place if they lose their device or if they start to embrace this new revolution of identity. Yeah, that's your job to do that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't like watching people type passwords. I see it all the time when I'm on the train, people type in their login. I don't want to see that. That's not good for me to watch that. You can't impersonate my face very well. You wouldn't want to, trust me. Let's have a quick talk about Microsoft 365. Who hadn't heard of that before this week? Hands up.
Quite a few. Wow. Okay.
So this is a kind of a rebundling. We're getting Windows 10, Office 365, and EMS together as a single package. So why is it the new kid on the block?
Because it's new. It only got announced in the last month or so. It's a new way to get people aware of a bundle. That's all it is. It's a new way to say, raise profile. These are all the components that if you take them on board and pay the subscription, you're going to have all the best components that Microsoft has to offer for the desktop or for the device. That make sense? Under one price.
So we're not going to talk too much about Office 365. We're not going to go too much on Windows 10 now. Let's zoom in, though, on EMS, because this is actually a big tech area that a lot of people here probably don't know as much about as they should. So let's unpack some of this. When you break down EMS, it itself is a bundle. So it's a bundle of bundles, this Microsoft 365. But the EMS bundle, if you will, is Azure AD, but not just Azure AD, it's the premium version of that, and that's got some advantages we'll call out in a second. You're also getting Intune for device management, and you're getting Azure Information Protection. So we're going to zoom in on those over the next few slides. But what we think is really the sweet spot is the overlap between all of those because they're complementary. You can use them individually, but you want that better together approach to get the most out of device security. So let's unpack some of that. Let's talk about the AAD Premium and what that brings to the table that we haven't already said. One of the things we're getting is multi-factor authentication, this idea of using a token in an app or a text message or a phone call as a secondary means of validating the user logon. That is definitely going to be more secure than just a single username password. Users get the ability to do self-service password reset. So they may not need to come to you for those tasks. Yay, help desk doesn't have as much work to do. Brilliant. And what's very powerful here is you get security reports. You can see about potential hacks, potential breaches, user accounts that are being targeted. This is not easy to get in an on-premises world. But it's there, right there for you. You don't have to code anything. You don't have to buy anything special in. You get web-based reporting on the state of user account authentication. That's really powerful. We've already seen the BitLocker recovery stuff. And we can extend this into MDM enrollment, which we'll talk about more in a second. The whole point to that, though, is that auto-enrollment means your device, as soon as it touches AAD, AAD says, I know this, you should be managed. You should be managed by MDM, mobile device management. Right away from the get-go, your computer is connected correctly, managed, immediately it touches the internet. It's going to download policies, it's going to download profiles and so on that are useful that you've set up. One of the other great things about AAD is conditional access. You create policies to control the access to your cloud applications the users consume. An example of this is you might set up a precedent where you can only get to a cloud app if the device is AAD joined. So you know about it, you've checked it out before. That's a simple one. You can add to that and say, well, let's use MFA for user authentication. You could also say, look, the computer has to be MDM controlled before the user can open that application. So it may not be anything to do with the user. We may want to make sure your device meets the standards, right? If your computer is not MDM managed and is downloading all the correct security policies, you, as a user, will not be able to access that application. We want to make sure your computer is robust enough and meets standards. You can also specify that computers have to be compliant. They have to be up to date, they have to have the right policies on them, they have to be fresh before the user gets access to the app. So the identity protection stuff is very powerful. We talked about that a second ago. You get some insight straight away. You don't have to build this out. It's just in the Azure portal. You can open it up and see, are there any users at risk? Are there any vulnerabilities right now? Which accounts might be vulnerable? Would you know how to find that on premises? There's just nothing similar, is there? There's no kind of log or graph that shows you that on-prem.
And we're not going to, it's unlikely to expect millions of companies across the world to build this type of technology out themselves. Yeah? And that's why Microsoft is saying, look, sure, for a subscription, embrace ours. And we can see in the future, this is just going to keep continuing. So when we said at the beginning, if you can start to pilot or test or dip your toe in the water with some of these technologies, life should start, you should start to see the benefit and go, yeah, how can we now adjust our workflow and our work practices to meet these options, and to embrace these, rather than, we see a lot of legacy historic problems that just hold us back. And a lot of those are real in our face and we can't do a great deal about them, but somehow we need to chip away and say, well, can we do it for this area of business? Can we do it for these 100 people? Or how can we at least try this type of solution? Because then management will see the benefit and think, right, okay, what do we need to do? Because that is amazing, potentially. Okay.
Yeah, there's potential cost savings there, and we're kind of brushing that under the carpet today, but there's that aspect potentially for you guys as well.
Yeah. And you then get to use up-to-date kit, up-to-date solutions. You feel you can sleep at night because you know that Microsoft and its security partners and all your kit is then being managed and secure, and you're not worrying about, did I leave a door open somewhere, or did a user leave a door open somewhere? Did they type the password on the train? Okay, let's have a quick look at Intune. Quick show of hands. Who's played with Intune? Who's thought about it? Who's using it? Wow, there's a good third of you. That's pretty good. Intune is front and center in a lot of the MDM solutions that Microsoft offer. They're pushing more and more resources into Intune. They're seeing it complement System Center, and it's starting to open a lot of people's eyes once they go down this remote management of, especially in Windows 10, but also it offers Android and iOS management and control and policies as well. So let's have a quick look at the type of things we can do in Intune. And my clicker's not working. Okay, so Let's get all these slides up. So it's built into a lot of the functionality of Office 365. So it's a cloud application that runs and manages your devices, whether or not they're Windows 10, Android, or iOS. Okay? There's still support for some legacy Windows devices as well. So 8.1, even going back to 7. And they used to use a Intune agent you had to install, whereas now Windows 10 going forwards are built in with the Intune infrastructure built in already for you. Okay? So that makes life a lot easier. You don't have to deploy anything. You just, in effect, start subscribing to Intune, and you can manage any of your Windows 10 devices. So going forward, life will be a lot easier once you start using, and especially when you start using the Azure Active Directory and the premium features as well, you can start to brand the portal and have a lot more functionality within Intune because it's together with Azure Active Directory as well. Okay. So if you've got EMS, seriously consider bundling in there Intune as well. And that's where the Microsoft 365 concept comes about, because there's so many people using, let's say, Azure Active Directory or Intune or Office 365, but they're not aware of, once you start thinking holistically of what else we're missing out on, that's where 365 Microsoft comes in. You get the whole suite. And that's when you can go, wow, that's when it really comes together. So consider that. If you've got one or two of those components, and I know you already said you've got Office 365, a lot of you, have a look and see what the licensing for you would be if you wanted to top up to Microsoft 365. So, some of the benefits that we need to talk about. A single admin portal, which is now, you saw on the slide a second ago, is now embedded into the Azure portal. So again, Microsoft is playing everything into this Azure portal. All right, so you've got one pane of glass, one portal that you need to look at, that you need to consider. Intune is just another component on that dashboard, another blade. Yeah, and just in the last 6 months, they're putting more and more functionality in there, and it's just it's becoming alive. It's not a static application. None of the cloud services, as we know from 365, Office 365, none of them are static. So they're running with this, and they want you on board with this as well, so you can start leveraging the benefits. Okay? Chris mentioned already, you've got that single sign-on. It's the same Active Directory, Azure Active Directory sign-on, which makes life so much easier for your help desk, because they're only managing one account. If you've got the premium, you've got self-service password reset. You're not messing about with 2, 3, multiple different logons. Okay? Now, we appreciate SMEs or businesses don't often get the skill set or the cash to spend on a STCM infrastructure. That's an expensive investment, as you appreciate. Whereas you get a subset of the STCM functionality with Intune. You can manage devices, you can deploy applications, you can look at security, you get the reporting. You saw the properties that we get through Active Directory per device. We get the same level with Intune. Yeah? We can wipe devices, we can lock them. If you get a call to a helpline saying, I've lost my iPad, or I've lost my phone. Yeah, you don't have to wipe it straight away, but you can lock it, remotely lock it, within seconds. These are the benefits that you might not have if you're still with your traditional Active Directory infrastructure. You have to send an engineer out. You have to, it becomes clunky, and that's the old way. What we're trying to say is, consider the new, deploy a pilot, and reap the benefits. Because that first deployment is always going to be the hardest for you. So do it in 1,000 or 100, do it in a small stage. All right. The last point on the slide is where we've always got a touch point with that device. So it's always tuning back to the mothership. So we can update our policies, we can update the security. Like I said before, we can remotely lock that device. Or we can remotely wipe all our corporate data from that device, leaving the applications that the owner has intact. Chris, you want to take over?
Yeah, so you called out most of this already, in fact. But the other thing is, Intune gives you asset inventory. This is not new if you're used to SCCM, but lots of people here might not have used it. SCCM gives you great insights into hardware and software. That's the same here. So I get a cloud-based view of what's installed on that laptop, what kind of hardware, what kind of laptop is it? I can see that through a cloud dashboard. I can do reporting, and then we can start using that to help distribute software and also updates to those devices based on those identities. One of the things that's really useful especially for remote computers, is the ability for those to be managed in terms of Wi-Fi profiles and VPN connections. We can send those down to the devices. So if you've got a computer that's in the field the whole time, and it sometimes needs to connect back home on a VPN connection, we don't need to talk the user through doing that. We can ship that down to their device automatically from MDM. So it's ready to rock and roll from the get-go.
So how's this more secure? Let's recap on that.
Yeah, so how is it more secure? So it's cloud managed. Computers should be in touch with the cloud, we think, more often in today's environments than if you would consider, say, sales and field computers. They're always going to have an internet connection at some point in the day. They're not always going to come back to the office. That's what Andrew was talking about with these gaps. You could have an unpatched computer for a week if you're relying on it connecting back to the office. With the internet, it's always there for you. The CSPs are the way we deliver the settings. It's kind of equivalent to a group policy setting, if you will. We deliver out our security settings this way, and also we can ship down those VPN profiles, et cetera, as well. What's kind of cool is that you can also control your updates. You need to make sure, this is so important, and you've heard stories over the summer about ransomware. PCs that are not patched are so much more vulnerable today than they ever have been. So we need to make sure we're on top of that every single day. Computers checking in are going to get their Defender and Windows updates provided through this service. A more up-to-date device is a more secure device, no question about that. Okay, so we've also talked earlier on about some of the gaps. So one of the gaps that we often see in an infrastructure isn't so much the cabling and the computers, but the human angle. This is where it all falls down. Can we trust the users to do the right thing? Are they going to leave their computer open so someone can copy a file off of it? And that's often where the gaps are. So if we think about where our current practices leave us, if you sit down and analyze it, often there are gaps, whether it's to do with the logon process of somebody watching you type your password on the train, or that data file accidentally being mailed to the wrong people, or being sent out too early. Where the gaps are, we can plug that. And what we're going to see here is that EMS has that built in. One of the key parts that we talked about previously in that trio of services is Azure Information Protection. With Azure Information Protection, you're able to look at your data and say, this data can only be consumed by known devices. We're not going to allow you to connect from an unknown device. Even though you're the right person, you're not going to be able to connect from an unmanaged device to consume that data. Your data itself is also contained differently on your managed devices. This is great because it means you can have personal devices being used much more readily without concern. You can work on your corporate documents and your personal documents at the same time without fear of crossover. So I'm not accidentally going to be able to store my corporate Word document to my personal OneDrive. The applications will stop you from doing that. The information is protected. Okay? That makes it more open to using any device anywhere. So the whole theme of this is a better together strategy to exploit all of these avenues. So we're not just using Intune for MDM management. We're not just using AAD for the authentication. We're trying to tie these together. And to be honest, you want to get the most out of that investment. If you're buying EMS on its own or EMS as part of Microsoft 365, you need to get your money's worth from this, okay? And you need to tap into this. A lot of customers we talk to only use small silos. Oh, I'm just using Intune. Well, what about this? It's a whole area that is definitely worth considering, and it should be done as that better together strategy. A quick mention on Office 365. Again, it's part of Microsoft 365 as well, but on its own it could be consumed too. This also has MDM capability. You may have heard of that. You can use that standalone. You don't have to have an EMS subscription. You could tack this on as part of your Office 365 subscription. Most subscriptions have that. Devices are going to actually be managed not in the Azure portal, but in the Office 365 portal. But actually, if you have Microsoft 365, you should be using Intune as your MDM provider. Okay, so sorry if that sounds a little bit confusing. You've got a couple of choices there. Intune is the better one. Okay, it has a superset of features, things like application deployment, mobile application management, VPN profiles that we've talked about. You only get that with the Intune MDM. You don't get that with the Office 365 one. So it's okay, but it's not as fully featured. If you have EMS, you should be using Intune as your MDM provider.
Okay.
So we come back to kind of where we started here, which was our proposition. Windows devices can be more secure by not having them part of your existing infrastructure. Have we persuaded you? Hands up. Convinced? One person is convinced. And this was the government guy as well.
To some extent, it's a leap of faith, and we appreciate that. Okay.
Already doing it. That's good
So
to hear.
to some extent, it's a leap of faith. You know, but try this out. Practice. Set up a demo lab. Work out where it doesn't work and where it does work, and see what the cost would be to make it work. And then look at the subscription costs and look at the infrastructure costs and compare. Because we've done the math on many companies, and initially it's like, it sounds expensive, it's all subscription-based. But then when you look at what was the invested cost over the last 10 years, compared to what the expected cost is for the next 5 years, and the size of your company, there's a eureka moment. And it's like, oh, that looks better. And it gives you all these benefits that Chris and I have been talking about for the last 42 minutes. So, we've got our myth balloon with our solutions. It's going to be a little bit cheesy, but shall we pop this balloon?
We've got to pop the balloon. We blew it up. We have to pop it. The balloon has to die.
So we've hopefully helped you think about think about this, think about it in a new way. We're putting all the pieces together. And when Microsoft said they were going to come up with Microsoft 365, that was like a gift. Because instead of Chris and I going around consulting, showing people how to work with individual components, we can just show them Microsoft 365 now. And that's like, wow. So, go on.
Go on.
I'm scared.
Do it. Oh, you did it. Well done.
Okay.
Okay. So, thank you very much for sitting in and listening. There is going to be a related session to this one tomorrow, which is managing Windows devices in the complex hybrid cloud world of today. So if your angle is more to do with hybrid, you have on-prem, you have SCCM, you have Intune, you want to come along and check that one out as well. That's tomorrow at 4 p.m.
So if you've got any questions, feel free to come forward. We've got an evaluation in a second. But if you've got any questions overnight, go to that session as well. That's a 75-minute session. Okay, so a little bit more in depth. Please complete the evaluations. We hope we've been useful for you, and we hope to see you again in future Ignites. Thank you.
Thank you.
Walk at the mic. All right. So we're currently using Intune. All of our machines are Azure AD joined.
Okay.
What we're struggling with is conditional access. And what we seem to be stumbling over is there's conditional access in multiple places, and we can't figure out which to use and when and how. So, here's an example. So, I'm one of the people in our trial conditional access group, and so we've set it up so that my devices require enrollment. And so, for example, on my mobile device, if I try to use the built-in email client, I get the little message saying you have to enroll.
Yep.
If I use the Outlook client, then it just works because of MAM. If I threw the mobile device management on my phone, so therefore I can use the built-in client, that's lovely.
Yeah.
The problem we have is if I take my personal PC and I fire up Chrome and I go to outlook.microsoft.com, I still get access. How do I stop that? And what we've been told is, oh, well, you need to do the Azure conditional access. You need to unenroll your PCs from Intune. You need to undomain join them, redomain join them as device managed in order to do that. And I'm going, but then I lose Intune. What am I missing?
Ooh, hard one. What are you missing? That's a good question. I'm not sure what you're missing there, because you don't want to take it out from...
We want to use Intune because we want some of those more advanced capabilities with some of the policies that don't exist in the domain in the non-Intune device management. we want some of the auditing that's not there yet, but we want to be able to actually use conditional access across the board.
Yep.
Because we want to basically make sure that any device that connects,
Right.
whether it's a PC, whether it's a mobile device, if it's not using an approved app or if it's not device managed, so we can force policies, they don't touch our SharePoint, they don't touch our Exchange, etc.
So pop down, go to the expo, go to the Azure management booth, and we'll whiteboard this for you.
Okay.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
they're the product team. They will, because you've got a complex scenario, but that's exactly the sort of thing that
And we
we
were
want you to
working
be
with a
using.
consultant, and basically they threw their hands up,
So-
right? So
Expo, Azure management,
Azure management.
and look for the PMs down
Yeah,
there.
I mean, you're right in what you're saying. It all sounds good how you've got it set up. The conditional access doesn't require Intune, but it should be able to work complementary
Yeah.
with that.
Right, and we were told that we were going to have to go full, like our Windows 10 PCs were going to have to be device managed, not Intune managed, and that seemed wrong.
No, you shouldn't, because conditional access can leverage the fact that it's an MDM managed device, but it doesn't have to be.
Okay.
So there's kind of two separate silos there, and there's something getting mixed up in between the two. I'm not sure what that is.
So, because the expo hall is huge. The Microsoft part of the expo hall is huge. So, where in that section am I going to find the booth you guys are pointing
The
to?
Azure guys is like the biggest.
It's just in the Azure
it's huge.
section.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
in the Azure section. Well, specifically the Azure AD folks are the ones who want to.
Okay, well, because the Azure AD folks are actually farther down in the identity section.
Yeah, exactly.
So I want to go to the Azure identity
Okay.
section, folks.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Question?
I wish I could give you the magic bullet here and
No,
say
no,
this is the answer. But I mean, conditional access is separate to Intune. They should
But
be working
Intune
in a
has conditional
complementary
access in it,
way.
and that's where we really got confused,
Yeah,
right?
but you
So-
shouldn't need to take them out of Intune to make that work.
Okay.
You should be able to
Microsoft
leverage the
365,
fact that they
yeah,
are
that's a,
Intune managed machines to give you greater granularity in those
If you're an
policies to
enterprise-
say,
if you're an enterprise, yes, it's
we want to make
enterprise.
sure
If
it's a
you're
managed device
up to
in order
300
to use
users,
the
it's
app.
pro.
But you can totally use it without Intune as well.
Okay.
So there's something getting screwed up in between. I don't know
Right,
what that
right.
is.
We've missed something, and that's what I'm trying to piece
Yeah,
together.
I
is
don't know
have
what that
we
missing
missed.
piece is.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks for your question.
premise.